Hello, folks. This is Professor G's Remedies for Marketing 421 at University of Phoenix. This is week two's individual assignment. We're getting into marketing research and specifically going over the five-step marketing research plan and what it means to marketers, as well as discovering the target market and differentiation and positioning. So let's get into it. Your scenario here is you are a marketing manager and you have to use the five-step marketing research approach to discover why repeat and new membership is declining for your nonprofit organization you represent. Now, this sounds like trouble because you don't have repeat customers and you have very little new customers, so you're going to have to figure out what's going on. And we're going to use the five-step marketing research approach to do that. So let's get into it. This is the five-step marketing research approach. Get my pointer out here to help you with this. Now, I tell folks all the time, start with the end in mind. You have to think about your marketing actions. You got to think about how you're going to organize the research data that you have to persuade or at least give some important information to decision makers above you in order to make informed decisions. So they need numbers, they need charts, they need a lot of different things to answer a lot of questions so that they can make an informed decision for what's best for the organization. So, first of all, you need to start here. You need to set your research objectives. We already know that we're not having new members come in and we're not retaining them. Okay, so we identify the problems. Okay, and so you're going to establish, next step is establishing the specific constraints and your objectives. So your objectives here is like three different main ones that you're going to think of primarily. Primarily, you're going to do exploratory type research, which is kind of a general thing, looking at where the situation lies. Descriptive research is into the frequency and or extent between two things. Is it a factor in the environment about money that people have, or it's something shifting? You're seeing if one main component affects another. And then you can also think or go into casual, which is eventually that's getting into what's called primary data. We're going to get into that in a second, where you're going to have to do some tests and questionnaires or something like that to get more information. Now, your constraints that you're talking about here is the time frame that you have. You may have a specific goal where you have to meet a launch time. You may have money and a budget to consider where you may or may not have enough money or time to do everything. So you need to set up your constraints as far as that's concerned. Where you're going to go locally, or are you going to do a national research? Where are you going to find this information, right? You're going to identify that data need and determine how you're going to collect that data. And that's really based upon if you're going to try to grab that secondary or primary data. And the difference between secondary and primary data is this. Secondary data is already being collected. You can go to the Census Bureau. You can even use your own sales history and see who's buying or who's donating, what zip code are they doing that. With that information, you can look things up from the Census Bureau. There's a lot of different places that you go with outside resources so that you can develop findings uh, for more of a descriptive type objective. Now, primary data means you're going to go to the horse's mouth. You've kind of run out of all your secondary data information. You found two main components that you don't know how much one influences the other, and so you're going to have to obtain primary data, usually through a survey or questionnaire. And when you're talking about surveys and questionnaires, you have to make sure that you do what's called cross tabulation. I want to break from this in a sec for a second. Now, all of this stuff is found in your book in chapter 8. And it's important that you go to your book and grab terms and concepts from the textbook and apply it to your assignment. We as facilitators want to know how much the students are grasping of the materials and applying it to the scenario. And by applying it to the scenario correctly, we go, okay, they're understanding these marketing concepts. So it's best that you just don't come up with this stuff out of the blue. Really go into the textbook, understand these terms and how they apply to your situation. Okay, now back into this. Obtaining primary data means you're going to do a thing, and it's in the book. It's called cross tabulation. It is the information, usually demographic or behavioral type questions, like how often do you do this, what's your monthly household income, your age, those simple type questions in a questionnaire, also combined with questions, a scalable question that goes over people's preferences. On a scale of 1 to 10, would you prefer to donate at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, something like that. Scale of 1 to 10, what is your feeling towards donating globally over donating locally? Things like that. And so that way you can say, okay, people from the ages of 25 to 35 prefer by 50% to give globally. You can cross tab those things. You have that information. And that information, it puts you into this. You can present your findings to the management so that they would know where to go to make marketable actions. And the marketable actions here, right, are things like, where are they going to spend their advertising dollars? So you're going to find out, where are these 25 and 35-year-olds that you know is going to donate toward your cause? Where are they? We're going to have to put together some kind of communication and grab their attention, right? Do events. What events are they at? Are they going to be at Running Man? Maybe we should advertise there. Things like that. So all this together, okay, it kind of ebb and flows and communicates back. You may have to take a step backwards in order to go forward. That's just marketing research. But altogether, putting together a plan like this is very important in order to be effective in your marketing research and presenting your information to managers to make informed decisions so that they can best decide of what marketable actions to take. We're going to dive into here with target market, and this is very important, okay? Everybody is not a target market. That's very important. So easy to say that everybody when you say target market. It makes sense. I understand that. Who's your target market? Oh, we're going to go with everybody, right? But if you're doing your research, you're going to discover that, oh, let's not waste our time with the 12 to 20-year-olds. They're not going to donate. So that's not everybody now, is it? So do me a favor, do not put everybody as your target market. You have to be real specific on age groups and their lifestyles and how they go about purchasing things. Where do they go to get their information? Because that's really important towards your marketing actions. So let's take a look at some of this. This is my favorite chart in the whole textbook, and I always go back to it. I've been teaching this stuff for years, and it helps me organize things as a marketer myself. So let's go over this. When you go to describe your target market, you need to use these terms. These terms are in your textbook. It's on this page, depending on the edition, but it's right around here. It's in chapter 9. Okay, it's the first table. You have to go over your segmentation, the variables of it, and then how it's broken down. So it's just a few things don't have to use this all, but this is a great chart to use. So let's go over like demographic. That's probably the easiest one. You may determine that your target market, right, is 18 to 24-year-olds or 25 to 34-year-olds. That's a good 9 years or so, right? I see this all the time. This does not work. Do not put down that your age group is between the age of 15 and 65. What is a 65-year-old person going to have in common with a 15-year-old? Very little to nothing. Okay? So when you're looking at a specific age group, go with about a 9-year, 18-year span of time. What might even be better for you, right? If you look at your life stage, or if you look at your specific generation that you're in, like obviously millennials or Generation X, those are two different people. One person knew a day when they had rotary phones, and another generation never knew a day without a cell phone. Okay, totally different experiences. They're going to communicate different. They're going to donate differently. Okay, so be very specific about that. Okay, education level, annual household income is a big deal. Okay, and all of that, you're going to couple that, which is going to make sense with maybe how they do their purchasing. Maybe they're purchasing things online. And so look, so behavior and psychographic can be very confusing for some students. Real simple. Okay, psychographic is kind of the lifestyle, with their day-to-day activities, how they are personally, right, as individuals. Behavior is none of that. Behavior is how a customer makes a purchase. How do they buy things? How do they consume things? How often do they do it? Are they a light user, a new user, regular user? Do they buy it seasonally? Do they only buy it online? Do they go into a store and do it? I do both. I will buy something online and then go to the store to pick it up because I don't like to be waiting in line for anything, so I don't want to wait on a salesperson, to go get me something. I'll just do it at home on the computer and then head off to the store and pick it up. So those type of things, that's a behavior, right? Psychographic is the lifestyle. Are they active lifestyle? You could be older, you could be retired and still have an active lifestyle. But are they artsy people too? Are they entrepreneurs? What's their psychographic like? Okay. And then lastly, geographic is best when we're talking about this stuff to go with some kind of region or density, because you could say Bakersfield, but there's so many different types of people in different places of Bakersfield in itself. So you may want to talk about being suburban, the suburban or the urban areas, right? Metropolitan, right? Or you may want to consider, like, obviously, recently we know this, there's a big difference with people who are in the Northwest versus those who are in the Southeast. Okay, so and a lot of times those mindset is going to be, those people have a different psychographic than each other, right? They might be of the same age, but a person who's living in rural areas of Alabama are going to have a different psychographic than those who's living in the Northwest in Seattle or Portland. Okay, so going through the description, right, it's more than one sentence. It's like several sentences. It's 4 to 8 sentences on what your uh, target market looks like based upon these four, and use these words. Use psychographic. The psychographic of our target market is the thinkers, it's the achievers, it's the active lifestyle, right? You want to talk about those things because they live in the ages between 18 to 24, young professionals making 50,000 to 75,000 a year. That's what you want to talk about. That's the information that you want to put down in that section. Now, positioning is very interesting. Um, Product positioning, also known as brand positioning, it all depends if you're talking about a product or a brand. And we're going to get into brand equity next week. But this is very important for this section because you need to decide how your company is going to connect with this target market. And it's based upon positioning. And a lot of folks, when you ask them a question about product positioning, what is product positioning? They go, oh, okay, this is where you find it on the shelf. This is where you find it in the city. Where's the store located? That has nothing to do with, it has something to do, but really that is not product positioning, brand positioning. Positioning is how the consumer positions your brand and or your product amongst other brands. Okay, like everybody knows that Coca-Cola is probably the sweetest Coke, and so you're going to say, or the sweetest drink, so you're going to position Coke as the sweetest drink, and then meanwhile you're probably going to say, well, kind of behind that would be like Gatorade or what else, and then you get down to water, which is not the sweetest, right? So basically positioning is going to use two main elements, two main attributes, and I'm going to go over two of them with you for nonprofit. You don't have to use these, but this is a good way to look at this, okay, as an example. So we're going to go with geography, okay? Is your nonprofit more of a local nonprofit or a global nonprofit? Where does it lie along this line? Is it more global or is it local, right? Some of them are a local chapter of a global, which would probably put it in the middle, okay? And then there is who is your uh, product for? What's your product about? Is it for helping more children, like minors, or are you helping more of the adults and society at large? Okay, what is your who who are your benefactors of your nonprofit? Now, we could put several names in here, right? Who do we think of? What brands do we think of? What nonprofit organizations do we think of? Like UNICEF, right? They really help a lot of minors and everything, but it's global. They're everywhere in the world, right? Okay, another one, right? Any type of religious organization might be more towards the helping adults and stuff like that spiritually, but they do have a lot of um, things that they do for children. Okay, so religious ones, you may have a small church that's local, but then you may have larger denominations all around. Okay, um, then here's a big one that we all love: Wounded Heroes, right? They have local chapters, but they're mostly global and they only help adults. Not saying that they only do, because I believe they also help the children of wounded veterans, but their main focus is the adults, right? Hospices, there's nonprofit hospices, mostly for adults. They do have some minors in hospice, obviously, but it's mostly for the aged people, and a lot of times they're all locally based. Okay, um, Boys and Girls Club. Here is a national brand, but they have local places, and but it's all over the place, right? There's a Boys and Girls Club in just about every town, right? But they're only helping minors. Okay. Now here in Kern County, we have Kern County Sheriff's Activities League, SAL. They help minors, and it's local. Okay. So where would your nonprofit fall on this chart? Where would it on this graph? Where would it fall? Okay. Now, like I said, you don't have to use these two main attributes of location and age, but you could do things like, the monthly prices of this versus reach versus whatever two attributes you may think of. You're like, this is what we want to be known for, is mostly for adults, and that we're global but have local affiliates. You think of it that way, okay? Now, when we're talking about differentiation, right? That's what we're pretty much talking about in positioning. What makes your service or your nonprofit different than others? And that's the big thing. You do the research and you find out who is responding to your message, who do you want to respond to your message, and then you talk about your target market based on that, and then you're going to connect it with positioning. And what about that positioning? What makes your brand different than other brands, right? And so I grabbed this, pieced it together from the textbook. There is not a direct definition of this, but uh, this is what it is, right? Differentiation involves a firm using different marketing mix actions to help consumers perceive the service as being different and better than competing services. Okay, so let's get into it a little bit. So last week we went over the four P's, right? We have product, price, place, and promotion. Well, there's actually like seven P's when it comes to services, and here it is, right? The, the service itself, what is the product? And then of course the price of it. How uh, are you doing a month, making the prices a monthly one-time contribution? What do they get for that price? What kind of feedback? What kind of which really it comes down to, and what I want to get down here is the process of it. When you're talking price, how are you connecting the processes, and how are you connecting with your customers? That's very important. So they got to feel the value with it. So place, of course, local, global, things like that. Are you online? It's a big thing. And promotion. What type of promotions and what type of activities, events are you doing? Are you sponsoring, or what kind of corporations are you getting to uh, sponsor sponsor with you? Those type of things, right? You probably need a sales force that needs to go to specific businesses that will partner with you, that seem like a good brand partner, that business has a mission statement or values that's real similar to your mission and values. So that's how you want to connect. How are people connecting? Volunteers, how are you training those volunteers, in the folks who work for you? This whole part of the experience is so important. People like to volunteer for things when they know they're making a difference. And are you connecting with the people, making sure that message is being connected? Okay. And then physical environment. How are you going about your events, and your service differentiation, your product? How are you getting your product out to those who need it? Are people really seeing it? Are they seeing the difference? Are they feeling the difference that your organization is doing? Okay, so all together, all right. uh, this has been this has been Professor G's Remedies for Marketing 421. This is week 2, marketing research. We covered a lot today with marketing research, target market, positioning, differentiation. All that's working hand in glove, and you're going to make those connections in the assignment. And make sure that you cover all your bases. Make sure that you review the stuff in the textbook. You pull the terms and concepts from the textbook. Okay, just don't make it up. You can go to places online, and some of it's hit and miss, but make sure you hit the textbook first, because it's all there. All right. Please leave a comment in the section below, and I will see you again real soon.